Hi everybody, this is Joel Kennedy with Kennedy Violins. So today's video is another subscriber request, and we're going to be talking about how to properly use a shoulder rest. Okay, so what's the point of a shoulder rest? Well, simply put, when you attach a shoulder rest to the back of your violin, right, it makes your violin thicker, right? Because when you're holding your violin up, you have this gap between, the bottom of your jaw and your collarbone, right? So the idea is to make the violin easier to hold up because you've got this gap, this distance. So if you put the shoulder rest on, right, I'll put it on the back on the violin here. If I put it on my violin, right? Right now my violin is essentially thicker, right? So it's going to help bridge that gap between my jaw and my shoulder. So the theory is that now it's going to make it easier for me to hold my violin out like this instead of dripping like this, and it's going to take some work away from my hand. So now my hand is free to move around the violin instead of having to hold it up and play on the violin. That's the theory, okay? Not everybody uses a shoulder rest, but that's the general idea. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you if you should have a shoulder rest or not. That's something for you to decide, and that's perhaps another video. But if you are using a shoulder rest, this is how you do it. Okay, so shoulder rests are all a little bit different, but they have basically the same design, same general idea, right? So they fit on the bottom of the violin, and like I say, they make the violin thicker. So if you have a rest that's kind of like this, now this one right here is a Portland carbon fiber shoulder rest. So it's super durable. It's a great shoulder rest. We sell thousands of them a year, and it's really durable, and they don't cost a lot of money. So this is a great rest. Now, some rests are wood like this, kind of the same type of design, but they're wood. Now, if you want to budget more money for a shoulder rest, the reason why you might use wood instead of carbon fiber is because they generally produce better sound. When they're on your violin, they just resonate a little bit better. But if you're cost conscious and you want something that's going to work well, something like the Portland rest like this works great. So when you want to put your rest on the violin, what you want to do is take the end, right, that's dipped, right, this part right here that fits on your shoulder, take that lower end, and then that side of it, you're going to put the feet on your violin. So you're going to put it on the widest part of the violin, right? So if you're looking at your violin, the bottom bow, this is your widest area, right? So this area would be smaller, this area would be smaller. So here's the widest part, right? So you're going to take that area that I just pointed out where that dip is, you're going to put it on the widest part, right? You're going to put it on the widest part of your violin. Then you're going to put the other end on your instrument, and you're just going to slide it. You're going to slide it so it's basically on the widest part as well. Now I've got this rest adjusted, so if I tried to push it so it's on the absolute widest part of the violin, it might break the rest, right? So the rest isn't quite wide enough, but it's going to stay on there really, really well. Now that brings me to my next point. If your rest, once you put it on the widest part of the violin, if your rest is falling off, well, then you could adjust these feet. Now, there's many different ways of adjustment, but almost every rest, you'll be able to adjust how wide these feet, how far apart they are from each other, right? Because you may not have a full-size violin like this. You might have a 3/4 or a half or something like that. Or every violin's a little bit different. So you might have to adjust this width. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew this foot, because that's how this one works. I'm going to unscrew the foot, and I'm going to put it in, technical difficulties. I'm going to put it now, not in this hole, but on this one. So essentially that's going to make this gap a little wider, right? So now I'm going to screw this, this rest in. Okay, so now it's a little bit wider. Now I could adjust this to make it even wider because there's a screw right here if I wanted to. Okay, so now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put it on the widest part of my violin, and then I'm going to put on the other end, and then I'm gonna slide it so it's on the widest part of the violin. There we go. Good. Now the test, of course, now that you've got it on the widest part of the violin, just kind of shake it, make sure it doesn't fall off, make sure it stays on there. Now if it wants to fall off, well then you're gonna have to adjust it so it's a little bit more narrow. Okay, so it doesn't fall off. it's on the middle part of my violin. Now, if you wanted to, what a lot of people will do is they might start kind of adjusting it from there. So you could push up one end so it's kind of at an angle. Or what a lot of people do, what I personally do, is I try to put it on the outside of the violin as much as I can, so it's a little bit closer. It's to my neck actually. But if you try to push it a little bit closer and then, it falls off, well then that means you're gonna have to adjust that rest again so it fits your violin better. Okay, so let's look at the next way in which you can adjust your shoulder rest. Okay, so the next way that you can adjust your shoulder rest is adjust the height. So remember we were saying that when you put the rest on your violin, it basically makes your violin thicker, right? So it kind of bridges that gap. Okay, but the thing is that everybody's got a different distance between their jawline and their collarbone. So sometimes you want it higher, sometimes lower, because everybody has different lengths of neck. Okay, so if you're a small person and you don't have a huge gap here, you might want to actually adjust these feet so this distance is small, right? So most of the time with most rests, that means that you just screw in, you turn clockwise, you turn these little feet so they're a little bit lower, okay? So now that I've got this lower, I've put those feet in, right? Now, right, that gap, that distance is smaller. Okay, but on me, I have to kind of, lean forward a little bit, so I have to do a little bit more work to utilize that rest. Your goal when you adjust your rest is to make it so you're pinching your neck as little as possible. You're changing this angle as little as possible. You want basically ideally you want to put your violin up with your body in a natural position. Hi, I'm natural position, right? Because you don't walk around like this, at least I hope not, right? You walk around like this. So we want to be able to hold the violin up without having to do this too much. So because I have a longer neck, now I'm going to adjust this. I'm going to turn these feet out counterclockwise to increase that distance, right? So now I'm spinning these. So now I've made that rest taller. So now I'm going to put it on my violin. Okay. Now when I put it up, now I don't have to angle my jawbone down as much to hold the violin. So your goal is to remember, violin is very difficult. You want to make playing the violin as easy as possible because it's already difficult enough. This is one way in which perhaps for you, you could make the violin easier. Okay, so let's talk about one last thing with a shoulder rest. So the last thing that I'll mention about shoulder rest is you want to make sure you buy a high quality enough shoulder rest so that it doesn't fall off your violin and provide you as much support as you feel that you need. There are some very, very low quality, poor quality rests that you can get. Usually they come with your violin if you're especially buying off of Amazon or something like that. And the rests are kind of small and they're meant to fit all sizes of violins. They're like really, really adjustable. So you've got to be careful of those. The reason is because the rubber here, for example, a lot of times is kind of hard. So it won't stick to your violin really well. And so then when you move the violin around, it'll fall off. Or sometimes if they're really adjustable, they're meant for like all sizes of violins, then the plastic will be so the mechanism will be so stretched and strained that the mechanism will break and your shoulder rest will be broken. So those are some considerations. So no matter what shoulder rest you decide to buy, you just want to make sure that it comes from a reputable company, it's got some kind of warranty, and it costs a decent amount of price, because if it's, I don't know, if it doesn't, that might be a bad sign. But you want to make sure, especially if you're trying them out, this rubber is nice and soft. It sticks to your violin. It doesn't take the varnish off your violin, doesn't damage it. And you buy a rest that's meant specifically for your size of violin. So guys, I hope this little video helped. Don't forget to subscribe and to like the video. And yeah, that's about it. So if you guys have any questions, just put them below and I will probably answer them. With that, I hope you guys have a great time practicing.